All right, welcome everybody to the North Sonoma Valley Municipal Advisory Council meeting for April. And we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I think Hannah usually has a flag for us. Okay, join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible,
under God,
with
liberty,
liberty
under God, with liberty
all.
and justice for all.
for all.
Someday we'll all be together. It'd be easier to do that. All right, and I wanted to follow that. I really like that we did a land acknowledgement after that because, you know, the U.S. is almost 250 years old, but there have been people here much longer than that. So I wanted to follow that with a land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that the citizens and communities served by the North Sonoma Valley Municipal Advisory Council occupy the unceded ancestral lands of the Coast Miwok, who are closely related to neighboring indigenous people, the Pomo, the Wapo, and others. Asking forgiveness for past transgressions they and their ancestors experienced, we humbly invite them to join us in person or in spirit as we give gratitude for their ongoing stewardship of this place since time immemorial. Recognizing how much we benefit from their continuing presence as culture keepers and teachers, we commit ourselves to building positive and lasting relationships with our local indigenous community and to honor all the diverse peoples of our region. And let's see. So just a couple of housekeeping things. So we have question and answer and chat are turned off for the meeting. When public comment is opened, please use the raise hand function on your Zoom and to be promoted to speak. And I've had a hard time finding that, but I finally discovered, at least on my screen, it's off to the right. There's a response button, I think it's called. Right now it just says raise hand, so maybe it's not an issue, but and then if at any time it appears that our meeting has been hacked, we'll immediately terminate the meeting and reschedule for a future date. So to kind of following on what we did last month, which I thought was really effective. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Roll call.
Can I take roll?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
Okay, Councilmember Cooper. No. Councilmember Dawson or Chair Dawson.
Here as I can be.
Councilmember Dickey.
Here.
Councilmember Doss.
Here.
Councilmember Eagle.
Here.
Councilmember Nardo Morgan. Here. Councilmember Newhouser.
Here.
Councilmember Oldred.
She's here, but
She's here.
Yeah. Confirmed.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Vicky, for being my reminder.
There's
Here's
Jed.
Jed. Okay. Jed's just connecting in. So yeah, welcome, Jed. And I think we'll just consider Jed present since he just arrived. So kind of following up on what we did last month, where we had Judy Taligan as a special guest right at the beginning of the meeting. I decided to invite someone else to this meeting, and I'm trying to find people whose voices may not often be well represented, at the MAC. So I invite every MAC member, if there's somebody you think would be you'd like to invite as a special guest to speak for 3 to 5 minutes at the beginning of a meeting, please let me know and we'll schedule them in. And our special guest tonight, I think we may want to have back some time for a longer presentation because she does some really interesting work. But for tonight, she'll have the beginning of the meeting, and this is Patricia Galindo, or I usually call her Patty, is an old friend from many years ago, and she's lived in Glen Ellen for a long time, and she's the client services coordinator at La Luz. So welcome, Patty.
Thank you, Arthur. Thank you, everyone. I recognize a lot of faces. That's wonderful. I'm glad to see Damon Doss. I remember you from a long time ago at the Petaluma Health Center. Thank you so much for inviting me. Yes, I've lived in Glen Ellen. My husband and I have been here. I've been here since 1989, end of 1989. My kids went to the local schools. They both graduated from the local high school. We continue to be here, obviously, but it seems like the more time goes by, the more challenges we face. I originally grew up in San Francisco. I am from El Salvador. And so I've moved a few times. But Glen Ellen is my home and I love it here. I like the people, I like the community. I also like the fact that people respect each other's privacy. We all know where we live, but we stay away from each other just to keep everybody's privacy going. So I appreciate that. And I think we all appreciate the beauty and the privacy that we have in this in Glen Ellen.
Thanks, Patty. Would you be open to fielding a couple of questions if anybody has any?
Yeah, can you tell us a little bit about the work that you do at La Luz and specifically if you see people from our MAC area and what you think the needs are generally of the people in our area that we don't necessarily hear from?
So my role at La Luz is I was client services coordinator, and as of April 1st, I am manager of direct services, which is what I've been doing the whole 6.5 years. I think that the population that's not well represented is the Latino community. They have their own challenges, of course, and it's not just a language barrier, I don't think, because there is translation available, but it has to do more with work hours. A lot of people work in the restaurant business. They don't get out until 9-10 o'clock at night. Other people get off at 5-5:30. They, like the rest of us, they go home and they have to cook, and a lot of the Latino families have small children, so they go home and do what they have to do, cook, help kids do homework. And so that is the population that has always been a challenge for us to recruit, because they have other things that they must do in order to survive in this valley.
Any suggestions of how we might, if they can, they're certainly welcome to come to any meeting, but beyond that, obviously that's sometimes a challenge. Are there other ways that we could hear from them?
I remember specifically about 5 years ago when they were talking about county transit or San Francisco, some agency, government agency. They wanted to get input from people about construction on Highway 37, and also the timing of getting rid of the toll takers for the Golden Gate Bridge. So what we did was we invited those people to come to a meeting at La Luz. It was in the evening because that's what works the best. And they listened to what the proposals were, but they also came up with a map. And the same thing when they were talking about, the county was talking about building Highway 12. I probably remember when they were talking about, do we want 5 floors or do we want 3-floor apartment buildings, or what else do we need? Do we need water fountains or more garbage cans, things like that. So that helped also because like I said, we made a big, there was a big map that was made by the county, and there was these little dots that you would put on what you thought or what they thought were the most important things that they wanted to see on Highway 12. And what that turned into was a picture, an actual picture of what their priorities were. And it was things like, yes, we need garbage cans along Highway 12. We need water fountains. We don't want 5-story buildings on Highway 12. We only want 3 stories at the most. And we would love to have businesses on the bottom floor. So that was a really good engagement with the community. And I think that because La Luz has been around for so long, that people tend to trust what we do, and they like to be included. But when it comes to other meetings with the county, it's a little more difficult because of the time. And in general, it's funny. A friend of mine reminded me a few weeks ago. She said, when you think about Latinos and lack of engagement, and it was striking. I don't know why I hadn't thought about it, but in Latin America, people are not included in the government or counties, municipalities. They don't say, what would you like to see? Would you like trees planted along your road? They don't ask you those things. They just do what they do. So they're not used to being asked. Of course, the new generation, our kids, my own kids that were born here, they expect that. They expect to be asked. They want to be included. They're more aware. But the generation that we help in Sonoma Valley and at La Luz is not used to that because they've never been asked by government what they want, what they think.
Thanks. That's a good, really interesting perspective, really. I had not heard exactly that perspective before. Thanks. I wish we had a lot more time, but we do have time probably for 1 or 2 more questions.
I'll try and keep it short.
Okay. Any thoughts on SDC? And especially as how it relates to the Latino population?
The Latino population would love to see low-income housing, obviously, because a lot of our families struggle to pay the rent. They have 2 jobs in order to pay the rent. But so that, yes, of course they are in favor of low-income housing, but at the same time, low-income housing, that phrase is a little more, it's a little catchy because they saw firsthand the low-income housing that went up on Highway 12, where a lot of them didn't qualify, either because there were not enough apartments or because they made $5 more than the limit that they were allowed to qualify. There were a lot of outside people that came to live here. So yes, low-income housing makes everyone happy, but they know the realities of it. For me, in general, SDC, it concerns me because in 2017, there was chaos. Everyone leaving Sonoma, Glen Ellen. There was only one way. And we were fortunate that we were able to leave about 1 a.m, so we didn't have to fight traffic. So that concerns me. Much more housing. And yes, they say low-income housing, but it really isn't low-income housing, not low enough for our population. The other thing that really concerns me about SDC is the water. We all know that we're struggling here with the water, and it's just the beginning. So to me, that's of high concern, the water issue.
Thanks, Patty. And maybe just one more question from Mark, if you still want to ask your question.
Hi. Oh yeah, sure. Hi, Patricia. How you doing?
Hi, Mark.
Yeah, I just, just for some of us who are not as familiar with La Luz, what are some of the services that La Luz provides the community?
We have really good, really strong partnerships with the county. We partner with legal aid. So someone who is going through a divorce or is also going through, they need a restraining order, they help. We work with the Family Justice Center. We also partner with, oh my goodness, there are so many. It just really depends on, we have direct contact with people at the unemployment department in Santa Rosa. But at La Luz itself, we help people with things like if you want to apply for Medi-Cal, you want to apply for a CalFresh, which is what it's called now. It used to be food stamps. Or if you want to renew, because they have to renew once a year. We help with that too. We are a resource center. So if you call and say, how can I replace my Social Security card?
Mm, mhm.
You know, we know what the steps are. We know where the person has to go. We can also have the application sent to them so that we at La Luz can help them fill it out. So we have immigration resources. We partner with, or we're in contact all the time with Sonoma Immigrant Services, the Immigration Institute of the Bay Area in Napa. So it really, we have an array of services there. It's just a matter of someone calling and saying, you know, I need this. What resource can I find in my area? Not necessarily in Sonoma Valley, but in Santa Rosa, Napa, Vallejo. We also partner with FISH. So there's rent assistance. Right now, we're almost done with our ERAP, which is the Emergency Rent Assistance Program. We've been helping people navigate that system with the county. So it's a lot of things, many things. We're just, this weekend coming up is the last day to do taxes. We've helped about, I think 160 people do their taxes for free through the VITA program. So yes, there's a lot of programs through La Luz.
Well, it sounds like a very important organization. So thank you for all you do.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Patty, for all your efforts and engagement in the community. And I wish we had more time, but we'll set aside some time in another meeting for a longer session with you.
Thank you. You can always contact
Thank
me
you.
at La Luz too.
All right, and if you're interested, stick around. We're going to be talking about possible bike path, which would go all the way down to Madrone, and also talking about designating what are the boundaries of Glen Ellen, which often seem to be considered rather fuzzy, but we're going to try to set that straight. So we'll see.
I would love to. My husband's a bike rider, so
Yeah.
thank you.
All
Thank you.
right. Yeah. Say hi to Jim for me. Yeah.
Do.
All right.
Thank
Thanks,
you for your
Patricia.
time. Take care.
You too. All right. Thank you. Yeah. Okay. Are there any amendments or corrections to the March minutes? Or do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Sure, I'll move to approve.
Okay. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor, raise your hand. Anyone opposed? Nobody's opposed. Okay. The minutes from March are approved. So now we're going to move on to public comment. We haven't received any written public comment. So we'll just go straight to directly to comments. So if you would like to comment, please raise your hand in the Zoom feature. And then we'll put on a timer for 2 minutes. And then you'll get to say your piece. And then council members will wait for all the public comments to be completed before responding, unless if it does feel like it's something we should respond to, it's getting to be too much, then we may stop and do that in between. So I'll be a little wishy-washy about that one, but we'll try. We'll start with that idea. So Hannah, do we have any members of the public who would like to comment?
You look now, and it looks like we do have one hand raised. And just in case this wasn't mentioned, this is for items not on the agenda.
Right. Thank you.
I'll go ahead and share my screen with the timer slide. And our first commenter is Jay. You should now be able to unmute.
Welcome, Jay.
Hi, folks. I just wanted to thank you very, very much for having Ms. Galindo on the program today. The work that do at La Luz is absolutely astounding. They're an amazing interface between people who need help and the resources that are available out there. And I would look forward to seeing a much longer presentation on the work they do there. Thank you, Ms. Galindo, very, very much for the work you do. And thank you, Arthur, for bringing it up. I think it's a great idea to have everybody bring people forward who may not normally be in this. That's all I got to say. Thanks.
Thanks, Jay.
All right, and our next commenter is Alondra.
Welcome, Alondra.
Should now be able to unmute.
Hi, yes. So I'm passing on the note taker duty to my cousin Barbara, and I just wanted to say it was a pleasure. And I want to thank all council members for all you do and for allowing me to be a part of such informative meetings. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Alondra. Thanks for all your good note taking and impressive. This last month was 19 pages, so it's no small thing to do what you've been doing. So thank you.
All right, and just giving folks one final chance to raise their hand. Seeing no further hands.
All right. Any responses? Wasn't really any questions raised, but if anybody has a response, feel free to jump in. Okay. So next we have an announcement, upcoming alert and warning exercise from Sam Wallace, who's the Alert and Warning Program Manager at the Department of Emergency Management at the county. And Hannah, you can go ahead and promote him.
Yeah, thank you.
Uh-oh. Try that again.
Is that better?
Yes. It's still a little echoey.
I apologize. I'm not sure where the echo is coming from. Give me a moment and I'll see if I can shut off something on my computer.
Yeah, no problem.
Can anybody hear me?
Ah, darn. Still doing the same thing. I wonder if you close out and come back in.
Yeah, let me try that.
I'm curious, did anybody on the emergency response committee have contact with Sam while you guys are doing your work? Like Mark and Damon?
No, I did not. So this will be great. we can get rid of that echo.
Yeah.
Wait, I thought that was the emergency alert signal.
Yeah.
To Zoom, enter your meeting ID followed.
Maybe he needs to turn down his volume on his speaker or something. I don't know.
Let's see.
If you are the meeting host, please enter your host key followed by pound.
Uh-oh.
If you are a participant, please press pound to continue. Meeting has not started. Please.
Jeez. Did you complications?
What type of emergency are we speaking about?
It's a sonic emergency.
There is an irony here that we should probably observe.
So now he's got it on mute.
Mhm. Oh, completely gone. Maybe you could suggest if it doesn't work again, Arthur, you try it by phone, possibly.
Yeah, we could do that.
There we go.
Ah, there he is. Welcome, Sam. You're still on mute.
Okay, I tried disabling my phone. Now is it working?
Yes.
My sincerest apologies. You'd think after 2 years of handling Zoom meetings, I would be able to handle this much better. So my sincerest apologies. Please give me a moment to get reorganized here. If I can share my screen. All right, hopefully you can see my screen at this point.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm afraid I can't hear anybody. Let's try raising it. There we go. All right, so after that, apologies. My name is Sam Wallace. I'm the Community Alert and Warning Manager for Sonoma County Department of Emergency Management. And I wanted to talk to you very briefly about an exercise that we're going to be holding in the Sonoma Valley at the end of this month. Just really quickly, we're actually holding a couple of different exercises, one of which is focused on the Sonoma Valley. First of all, just to let everybody know, on Friday, the 29th of April at noon, we are going to be doing a countywide test of the NOAA weather radio alerting system. That doesn't really pertain specifically to you. I just wanted to include that is in fact happening. And then Saturday at noon is the main event where we're going to be doing a live testing of the SOCO alert system. And I'll show you a map of where that is in a moment. We'll be targeting about 16,000 telephones in that process. It's going to be about a 30-second message from people. We are going to be asking them if they want to take the time to give us feedback through an online survey monkey, just so that we can get feedback. And one of the things about this specific one, why we're testing in this specific area, is every year we do one of these tests. This year, the focus that we're doing is we're trying to assess how well our alert and warning system works with our Spanish-speaking residents. And so we specifically pick the areas that we are because of the higher concentration of people that speak Spanish at home. Lastly, I did want to touch a little bit that there is going to be an exercise going on concurrently with this. The National Guard is going to be conducting an exercise for public safety agencies at the Sonoma Developmental Center. It's a series of earthquake drills where, fire apparatus, EMS and the such go in and do search and rescue. Not involved with this communication exercise. It just happens to be going on at the same time. I just want everybody to be aware of it so that nobody thinks that any real emergency is going on. Just really quickly, this highlights the area that we are going to be doing the exercise for. This was made as a decision between Sonoma Valley Fire and a variety of organizations that we have reached out to and have been very helpful in getting the word out. So as you can see, unfortunately, we can't cover everything, but this is the areas that we really did want to concentrate on, from north of the actual city of Sonoma boundaries up to and including parts of Glen Ellen. So if anybody has any questions about this, feel free to ask, and I will go back to the slide. I want to make it clear that we are only doing the NOAA weather radio and SOCO. We are not going to be doing any wireless emergency alerts. We are not going to be testing the emergency alert system. That's the television and radio portion of that. And you won't see any high-low sirens going off, nor will we be doing any Nixle. If anybody does want more information about this, if you do go to socoemergency.org, I'll try and put this in the chat, but I'm not sure if I have the access to that. But if you go to socoemergency.org and get ready events and exercises, we have a couple of pages of information that can go into that in depth. But that's about all I have. Are there any questions of me by the committee or the council?
Thank you, Sam. Any questions? Yeah, Councilmember Eagles.
Thank you for that, Sam. 2 slides back. Can I ask you, I think it was 2 slides back, when you went through the, one more back. Oh, sorry, I forgot there was a build there. I'm sorry, one more back.
One more back.
So can you
Yes.
explain, so that second bullet, for example, can you explain the nature of the alert? Will it be, you said it wasn't a Nixle, it wasn't a siren. Can you tell us what we'll get on our phones on Saturday the 30th?
Yes, absolutely. So if you are in our database for SOCO Alert, the alert will come as a regular old phone call. Your phone should ring. Yeah, it'll come as a call. If you answer it, you're going to hear the voice of my coworker, Jorge Rodriguez. He'll give you about a 30-second message where he makes it very clear this is an exercise. Thank you for participating. That's about it. Now, if you happen to be signed up for SOCO Alert, you might also get a text message. You might get an email if you've opted to do that. But as a bare minimum, we want to try and get a phone call to you.
Great. And will that leave a voicemail if folks don't pick up? They will. Okay, thank you.
It should leave a voicemail, depending. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. It depends on the person's individual system, unfortunately.
Okay, thank you.
Is it an opt-in or an opt-out for that?
No, this will be going to everybody who's in our area. So if you want to opt out completely out of the SOCO Alert, they can always contact me and I will pull them off. But by default, this will go to everybody.
Okay, that's good. So we don't need to do anything to be on it.
You don't really need to do anything. If you, I do encourage you to sign up for SOCO Alert if you want more things like to get those email and text messages. But you should be on the database. We have a fairly robust database at this point, so you should get a phone call of one form or another.
Okay. Any other questions for Sam? Yeah, Councilmember Morgan.
Hey, Sam, thank you so much for coming out today and for your services for the community. We really appreciate it. I have a question about the earthquake simulation that's going on at the SDC. Is that also simultaneous with the alerts, and is it a 2-day thing, and is it an all-day thing? And part of that question is, I often walk through the SDC, and is it advisable to still do that while that's going on, the campus?
So to answer the first parts of the question, it's actually going to be continuous both Friday and Saturday. The way it's set up is that there's actually fire departments from all over Northern California are actually going to come, and each one of them in turn goes in and does a specific scenario. I think they're running 4 different scenarios simultaneously. So you're going to see a fairly constant progression of fire engines coming into Sonoma Developmental Center and coming out of Sonoma Developmental Center. It just so happens that we're doing the exercise at the same time, but really there's no connection between the two. That one's being run by the National Guard for all of those fire agencies in the area. And I apologize, you were a little broken up and I didn't catch the last part of your question.
The last part was, is it advisable to walk around in the area during that time?
I'm not sure if I can say one way or the other. I don't think that there is any specific threat to it. They're not practicing moving very rapidly to the fire or anything like that. It's more of driving up, getting out, figuring out how to evacuate people that are trapped in rubble and that sort of stuff. I wouldn't say one way or the other. If I suspect that the way that they're running it, if that there are areas that they don't want you to go into for safety reasons, then I'm sure they'll have that roped off. So I don't see any reason why not to walk down that area.
Thanks, Sam. Councilmember Newhouser.
Yeah, thanks. Just regarding that 2-day exercise with the National Guard, I was told that there's a lot of volunteers, like local volunteers, that are not only doing the exercise of helping people, like, volunteer people with CERT training, but they also have people who are volunteering to get made up and be the victims, and do the makeup and be very realistic looking victims. So it's a real exercise to test all levels of an emergency response. So, and they're actually looking for volunteers. So if you're interested, let me know or contact folks. I know Julie Atwood is doing this work. But anyway, regarding your presentation here, I do have a couple of questions. One has to do with the the map, as you mentioned. Is this based on any like risk level? And if so, what is that based on? What, fault lines or just evacuation risk? I was wondering if you could address that.
Great question. No, it's not based on any specific threat. Quite the contrary, we consider most of Sonoma County, especially on the eastern side, to be under pretty much the same threat as wildfire, since we've all experienced it more than once. The main focus on this one is we wanted to target areas that had a higher than normal or higher than the rest of the county percentage of Spanish speakers at home. Because again, we want to get as much feedback as we can from the at-home Spanish-speaking community on how they receive the alert and warnings, whether they're able to understand them. Basically, we want to make sure that we're able to alert that segment of our population equally as well as we do for everybody else.
And a follow-up to that is how are you getting the data from them or the response and through your survey? How are you alerting people to the Survey Monkey?
That's a great question. So what we've done is actually starting several weeks ago, we started working with various community leaders in that area that have strong connections with the Spanish-speaking community. We've already started distributing a lot of flyers. You may see them as if you're in that area. Telling people, first of all, about the exercise so they know, and also giving them a opportunity to respond. There's also going to be, I understand, a preparedness fair of some sort the day of the exercise, and they're going to be soliciting people to respond. It's difficult. This is a challenge always to be able to get people to respond to it. I also have a method that I use that's more mechanical than anything. When I use the system, I can keep track of how many people, for instance, opt to listen to the Spanish version of the message, but that only tells me, how many people actually did listen to the message. But I am very interested in getting that feedback, and we're hoping that using a variety of methods and through a variety of local resources, we'll get as many people as we can to either get on the internet and give us feedback. We also have a hotline where people can leave a message and leave us feedback. And I've got a Spanish speaker that will reach out to them and interview them to get the best possible information from them.
Great, thank you.
All right. Thank you, Sam. Any other questions from council members? All right, any questions or comments from the public? I'll count down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. Well, Sam, any last words before you sign off?
Just first of all, this is my contact information. If anybody wants to contact me offline, I'm more than happy to talk. And thank you very much for giving me not only your time, but your patience as I work through my little technical issue. So thank you.
No problem. Yeah. Well, thank you for all your work on behalf of the community. And yeah, we in this area are very, very, very aware of the need for this kind of thing. And so thank you for working on this.
My pleasure, Mr. Chairman.
All right. So now we're going to move on to boundary acknowledgement and declaration of Glen Ellen, which everyone should have a copy of. Hannah can put this up on the screen. And before we discuss it, I just wanted to say, I'll just say a little bit about how I came to this. I was reading something about how some communities in the UK have an old tradition of walking the boundaries of their community, just to kind of reestablish what those boundaries are every so many years. And it was kind of an interesting idea. And then as I thought about how, this is one thing we talked about, putting up signs last month, I think, entering Glen Ellen when you get to Madrone, when you're heading north on Arnold, and kind of setting boundaries like that. And I know this has been an issue, particularly with Permit Sonoma, of having them characterize us as being two separate communities. So my thought with this was, this of course has no legal legal weight to it. I mean, it doesn't, in one sense, it doesn't mean anything, but what it does mean is that, if people agree with us when we vote on this, it will mean that we'll have another tool as we're, trying to work for our own interests, and also, let's see, what was I also going to say? I forgot what the other thing I was going to say, but basically, I'm thinking this as a tool, and in some cases where, there may be many cases where we don't need this, like the fire districts. It doesn't really matter to me if I'm in the Glen Ellen or the Kenwood Fire District, as long as my fire is being put out, but in the case of, planning that's going on at Permit Sonoma, where it is important to be recognized as a contiguous community, this is a tool just to remind, in this case, Permit Sonoma, but I think this may come in handy down the road for other issues. So that's just my background. And I've never written anything like this before. Somebody advised me you should follow this very formal, whereas and et cetera. So I did. It was interesting. So I'll open it up for editing and questions and discussion.
Through
So
the
should
chair,
we,
would you like me to share my screen or have comments?
Actually, yeah, how about let's have, if people have some sort of initial responses or comments, let's take those first, and then we can get into, edits. If we need edits, we can get into that. So any council members have thoughts or responses to this? Yeah, Council Member Handren.
So I just wanted to add that we've heard from a lot of people in the community who object to my neighborhood being referred to as Eldridge and not Glen Ellen. And I think that this is like you said, it's not a binding legal, have any legal effect, but it's a response to those people as well to show that we are hearing them. So I think it's good in that sense.
Thanks. Yeah, Councilmember Cooper.
Well, I've lived in Kenwood forever. I didn't even know what Eldridge was before I came here. I realized that it wasn't all Glen Ellen. And as I've talked to my neighbors and things, just curiosity, a friend that just moved from Marin to right near Hannah Boys Center, and they don't know what this is. And it seems really logical that this be done this way. So my only thought is, what would prevent you or us from submitting this to the state to just get it done? Do you think people would object or would not want this? I don't know. I don't live in Glen Ellen.
Well, I think what I think this is, I don't think the state would necessarily, I could be wrong, but they wouldn't necessarily do anything with this. But what this is a self-definition of Glen Ellen. This is the people of Glen Ellen, the people who consider themselves residents and citizens of Glen Ellen, saying this constitutes our community. Just like the fire department says, the Glen Ellen Fire District has these boundaries. So it's another layer, and largely based on the zip code. Because I think, in my mind, most people who, if your address is, Glen Ellen 95442, then you consider yourself a resident of Glen Ellen. And that seems like the most basic identification that people have. But there could be, to your kind of bigger question, Jed, there could be a place down the road maybe where it does become important, that maybe this does have some implication to the state. But right now, I'm just thinking for our local situation.
Well, okay, I don't want to pursue it, but wouldn't it just seems like it would be kind of a unifying kind of thing at a time when people feel quite separated. It seemed like it would be a nice thing for people, as just expressed, to feel like they're part of Glen Ellen and not I'm not putting Eldridge and those other places down. I'm just saying unification seems like would be appropriate. That's all. So.
Okay, yeah.
I'll leave it.
I actually went into the post office to see if anybody's, if there are any addresses being delivered, and they're still using the zip code for Eldridge. which is only the state hospital. It's not, doesn't include anything beyond the state hospital. And they said, no, they're not delivering any mail out there right now. The few people who are still associated with Eldridge are getting mail in Glen Ellen under that zip code, but that's about it right now. So they didn't know if that zip code is going to be dropped or reinstated or whatever. But in any case, I think it's still, we've always said, the state hospital is kind of the hole in the donut. It's really, in the mind of most people that I know around here, it feels like that's part of our community.
Okay.
Any other thoughts or comments or? Yeah, Councilmember Newhouse.
Damon's got his hand up.
Okay, yeah, Damon.
Yes, thank you. Another Kenwood fellow speaking up. I'm not familiar with all the outlines and the landmarks that you identified in your work, Arthur, and I appreciate all of that. But I do think it's important politically for those in Glen Ellen and in Eldridge to become unified in clarity, because I think down the road, and who knows how long this process is going to take, somehow we need to be able to convince Sonoma, permit Sonoma to acknowledge the wishes of those folks who live in that area. And I'm not exactly sure. It seems like no matter what we say, we the people say about how we feel about permit, Sonoma has their own idea of how things should be, and they just kind of move on. And so I think it's important to make the statement and put it in writing and on the record that there's a sense of community here that you're not acknowledging. It may not be helpful today, but I'm not sure down the road it won't be. And who knows how long this process is going to take. So I would be supportive of either a resolution or an adoption of the position that the North Sonoma Valley MAC recognizes that there's a community of Glen Ellen that is understood by people who live in Glen Ellen that is not acknowledged and recognized by Permit Sonoma. Thank you.
Thanks, Damon. Yeah, Councilmember Newhouser.
Wow, Damon, that was so well said.
Yeah.
I really concur with that. I think that in a way I almost kind of wish we could make a declaration without all the whereases and just say it so simply. But I understand that you wanted to contain a lot of history in this declaration, and I'll respect the formal structure that you put forward. I already submitted some comments to you, Arthur, between meetings and regarding this issue. But one of the main issues is just that we want to make sure that we're actually representing what people feel. And I think what Vicky said earlier was really important, that if people in the area that is basically contested here, as far as in the view of whether it be zip code or the overlap below Madrone Road, or just in the being defined as being a part of Eldridge. I think if people really do feel strongly that they're a part of Glen Ellen, then I would feel more comfortable supporting this as a resolution. I also would be much more excited about this if we do use it or plan to use it as a tool to actually promote a legal change, whether it be adjusting that zip code line or the definition of the actual political boundary, if there is one. And I think that the reason why the state is resisting this, and in turn why the county is not recognizing it, it's because if it's part of Glen Ellen, it's going to be a lot more difficult for them to push this segregated plan through that basically ignores the impacts to the community. So I think that there is a bias and a rationale for why they want to keep it separate. Not to sound conspiratorial or anything, I just think that it's a pragmatic move on the state's part, and the county is working for the state, not us, right now. So anyway, my 2 cents. Thanks.
Thanks, Mark. Just a quick response. My impression, I mean, I do, I am a little cynical, and I do have some of those same questions about what are they trying to pull off here. But even, like if you look on Google Maps, I think it shows that neighborhood is Eldridge because it's a census district, what do they call it? Census designated place, which is only designed to count people. It has nothing to do with a sense of community, but it's, but the county and the state, use that to say, oh, this is the community. But it's, I think, like I said in the declaration, these are just really, they're delineations that are just designed with like one thing in mind, counting people. And then if they're expanding the use of it, then that seems to be what's happening. But anyway, I think, I don't think any of these things we're as much a government entity as the Census Bureau, even though we don't have the budget or anything, but we can make a statement as a municipal advisory council. And since we're advising the county, right, we're advising the county that this is what this is who identifies as the community of Glen Ellen. So I think it's fully within our purview to put this out as an advisory statement. Yeah, Kate.
Yeah, thank you, Arthur, and fellow council members. So yeah, I agree. Well said, Damon. And I also agree with Vicky that we've heard some comments around this from our neighbors, my neighbors across the street. When I first saw this, I thought about, I'm in the neighborhood that's the carve out of 95476, which is on the map, and that little, that little carve out on the south side of Madrone. And I initially thought, how do I feel about that? But as I spent more time with this, and I looked at the whereas number 5, talking about citizens' affinities and identification with Glen Ellen, I think this is this is identifying community, and you're very clear on that, Arthur. And I don't know, Jed, to your point, I don't know that we need to be more formal about it at this point. I think it serves its purpose as a community designator. And I think about my neighborhood. So I'm in support is what I'm trying to say. And I think about our neighborhood, which is 95476, but right across the street is Glen Ellen. And when something happens, as is in process now with a dispensary, a marijuana dispensary on the corner, that is in Glen Ellen. But I would argue that Madrone Road and that cross section, in fact, may impact that little carve out of 95476 more than it would Glen Ellen. So there's lots of ways to look at it, but I think that it's very appropriate to include that little corner of 95476 in this community for all kinds of reasons. So that was kind of long-winded, but basically I think I support it, and I think we have had community support for something along these lines.
Good, thanks, Kate. And I think if we need to support this in the future, we could come up with a much longer set of background and reasons and history and all that stuff. But I don't know if at this point we need to, unless people are feeling we do. But any other comments before we go to the public? All right, Hannah, are there any hands? We'll take some public comment now. Anybody in the public like to speak to this?
And just giving folks a few moments to, yep, we do have a hand raised, so I'll go ahead and share my screen with the timer. All right, our first commenter is Nick. Nick, you should be able to unmute.
Welcome, Nick.
Pardon me. Thank you, Chairperson. And thanks for bringing this to the MAC. Yeah, I thought it also interesting that Councilmember Doss mentioned that Permit Sonoma seems to be making decisions and doing what they just feel like doing without public input. I thought that was a very interesting comment. I was also made note of Councilmember Newhouser's comment about segregating our town and creating there seems to be a bias to keep it separated for also similar reasons. You know that our neighbor in that part of Glen Ellen, Sharon Church, sent a petition around, and it was widely distributed. And she sent that petition to the supervisors and Permit Sonoma about formalizing the name of or acknowledging that that part of Glen Ellen was part of Glen Ellen and wasn't called Eldridge. And I look forward to formalizing the inclusion of that Glen Ellen neighborhood because we want those neighbors to know they're part of Glen Ellen and to know that they are fully included in our town in all ways. Thank you again for what you're doing.
Thank you, Nick. Yeah, I was hoping Sharon would be here, but it sounds like she'll be in. And if she's already sent that to the supervisors, that's another, another arrow in our quiver, so to speak. Any other members of the public?
Chair Dawson, I see no further hands.
All right. So let me ask the council, is there anybody who feels there's a need for editing? Yeah, Vicky?
I don't know if this change was made, and I apologize for not doing it sooner, but there's references to citizens of Glen Ellen, and I was wondering if we could change that to residents. It seems more inclusive to me.
Yeah, anyone, should we just take a straw vote, and everyone in favor of changing citizens to residents, raise your hand. Okay, I think it looks like we got unanimous. Okay, so we'll just change that. And when I was working on this, I kind of remembered it was like 1872 when the post office was founded. So we now have a birthday to celebrate coming up. Any other edits that people would like to see?
Just a quick question, Arthur. Do you still, like, since you changed that to residents in that same paragraph, do you still want to include the parenthetical citizens?
Oh, maybe not. Yeah.
I don't know.
We can just call it, just call it residents. Yeah.
Well, no, I wouldn't put it twice. I mean, it's repetitive. I mean, it's either, if you want to refer to it, I don't know. The way it reads, it's a little awkward. Overwhelmingly consider themselves to be residents, which I don't know.
I mean, I just don't want to speak for everybody, but yeah, Vicky.
We could say instead to consider themselves to be members of the community of Glen Ellen. I don't know.
Yeah,
or just be Glen Ellen community members.
Sure. Anybody
way,
object to that?
I think that does read better.
Yeah.
I don't object to that. I think the parenthetical or the in quotes is something to shorten it for future use. So I don't know how you'd shorten that. Community residents or something like that.
I think you could get
a little
rid of
shorter than Glen Ellen community residents or communities.
Could we just, even though it's a different word, do you think it still works as just a shortened version?
Community members.
Or members?
Yeah, community member sounds good to me. I think you could just remove that. I don't know, unless you want to put citizens in quote in that, because technically we're not a incorporated, municipality. So
I agree. I think I would remove residents. I don't think it's necessary.
No.
Yeah.
No, I think it's a device, guys, just to be clear. It's a device, that you use in legal documents when you summarize in future references down the page, you use a shorter term, right?
Yeah.
So what's that shorter term going to be? And we don't want to say Glen Ellen community members each time. Well, we could, but that's the idea of that.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah.
What if we just say Glen Ellen community residents?
Yeah, why don't you do it that way? Or just, why don't you just say Glen Ellen residents?
Well, we're making a statement about the community. So, I mean, I think
Okay.
it's, you know, I mean, it's said several times, so it's probably not critical, but I would be inclined to say community residents and then just shorten that to residents.
I don't know. I like members because I don't know if you, in the context of overwhelmingly consider themselves, I don't know, residents doesn't have as strong of a connotation as members, to me.
I would agree, Mark.
Also agree.
Although there is, you know, when I think about when you become a member of something, it's usually very much through a conscious act. But you can be a resident or a citizen of a place without any doing anything. You know, when you become a member of the health club, you have to pay some money and sign up, right? I mean, I just think it's a little different connotation, but to be a resident, you're just
Have to pay rent or a mortgage. That's a pretty big act.
you know,
whatever
I
you
think
want.
I don't think it's critical. I mean, this is
Wordsmithing at this point, yeah.
yeah.
There are members who are not
Conrad.
residents.
Uh,
I don't know. Glen Ellen.
Well, residents, yeah. So it's people who live in the zip codes. And I don't think we want to get into defining, you know, what about people who are here 6 months out of the year, you know, or 2 months out of the year, but
Arthur, I don't know how appropriate this is or not, but I got a text that Sharon Church just logged in and would like to speak. I don't have a petition.
Yeah, no, I'd be happy to.
Okay, great.
Yeah, Hannah, you want to put Sharon on? Hey, Sharon, glad you're here.
Not here quite yet. And just to clarify, Chair Dawson, because you're opening public comment, if any other folks raise their hands as well,
Okay.
we'll call on them
No
too.
problem.
But all right, and Sharon, you should now be able to unmute.
Welcome, Sharon.
Hi, thank you. Somehow I missed this meeting. I got a text saying it was happening, and I'm delighted to see what you're doing with this. You know, over a year ago, Lisa Hoxie and I canvassed our neighborhood and came up with well over 100 petitions. It took many, many, many countless hours to catch people when they're home. And we submitted those to the county to say, hey, wait a second here. We're not Eldridge, we're Glen Ellen. And I've been very encouraged by the feedback from people more down in the village who go, well, of course you're Glen Ellen. And I said, well, you know, there's everything I'm looking at now keeps referring it to us as Eldridge, and we're not Eldridge. We never were. So I'm really delighted to see this happening, and I can't thank you all enough. I think you're doing the right thing.
Great. Thanks, Sharon. And is there down the road, if we wanted to refer to that document, or do you want to, could you send that to us, whatever list of names you have of people that have signed a petition?
Yeah, I'll look to dig that out.
And I can, you know, when I send this in, once we get this finalized, I will send it into Permit Sonoma and send it to the supervisors. And then I can also include your list along with that, just as a reminder of something they should have already seen.
Very well, thank you.
Can I ask a quick question of Sharon?
Sure.
Just curious if you were asking for any kind of formal acknowledgement or a change in the designation of your area where you collected the surveys.
I'm in the neighborhood. I live on Marty Drive, and we canvassed from Martin down to Madrone, and you know, sort of that square. And we've always been Glen Ellen.
Mm-hmm.
Our tax bills come to Glen Ellen address. Our driver's licenses and passports are Glen Ellen. So we haven't been very happy being referred to as Eldridge, which was always the SDC property.
Oh, okay. So you didn't really include the 9546 section that's south of Madrone.
No, we didn't get over there.
Oh, okay. Okay, that's interesting. So 100 people just north of Madrone. Wow, that's pretty impressive. So you were really just targeting this for the PRMD and state, like STC discussion purposes?
Right, in Glen Ellen Forum, I know Alice Horowitz had suggested that, we get kind of active. And so we just kind of put together a petition and wanted to see if other people were like-minded, and found out that overwhelmingly they were.
That's amazing. Wow.
Yeah.
Congratulations. That's good work.
Oh, thank you. And I have to credit Lisa Hoxie for doing a heck of a lot of it too.
That's amazing. Thank you.
Thanks, Sharon. Thanks for being here, and thanks for being engaged.
You're welcome. Thank you, guys.
And thanks for being part of Glen Ellen.
Oh, thank you so much. Happy to be part of Glen Ellen.
Any other public comment?
Giving folks one more moment and seeing no further hands.
Okay.
And I can go back to sharing the document.
Okay, thanks. So let's see.
Through the chair, as your editor, I think we were last still talking about the residents in quote.
Yeah, residents. Maybe, let's see, how do we refer to it later on? We look, let's see. So we have citizens of Glen Ellen. I mean, I do have to say that citizen is a little stronger to me than resident.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And
Too.
if we
But many of our residents are not citizens,
Yeah.
citizens of what?
the United States.
But they can still be residents of Glen Ellen, right?
Citizens of, I suppose, yeah, that's true.
I'm sorry, did you say they can still be citizens of Glen Ellen or residents of Glen Ellen? I'm tending toward residents for that reason that Vicky just said.
Well, we're not saying they're citizens of the US, we're just saying they're citizens of Glen Ellen. So they're kind of recognized, maybe
Inhabitants.
inhabitants.
Yeah, the problem with using citizens is that you would have to use it in quotation marks throughout the document if you're using it in a colloquial sense.
Well, let me look up the definition of citizen. It just says, okay, there's two meanings as usual. It's a legally recognized subject of national or state or commonwealth, or an inhabitant of a particular town or city. So, I mean, I think we're close enough to a town that you could make a case for
As an
inhabitant of a
inhabitant.
certain
Yeah.
community.
In this day and age, when you say citizen, it's a pretty strong word sometimes. Residents are people that just live there. Community seems like a bigger group. So I'm just saying that. Seems like residents would identify the group we're trying to recognize. To me, whoever just said a lot of the residents or citizens are not really even citizens of the US, that might, I don't know, just a pretty strong word right now in my mind. That's all.
Good point.
I mean,
Yeah, yeah. Citizens is a little bit of a buzzword right now. Agreed.
I mean, I'll go with the group consensus on this, but I do think that it, we, even though this is not an actual legal boundary, we are kind of creating at least a quasi-official designation, which suggests that, to me, that citizen is a stronger word to describe people living, in that area. Like I said, I'll go with the group on this, but Matt, you have any comments? Nope.
What about the Commonwealth? Let's go old school.
Yeah. The Empire. Well, okay, so So should we have a vote, residents versus citizens?
Oh, boy.
So how about all in favor of calling calling the population being defined by this, all in favor of calling them residents, raise your hand. Okay, and all in favor of calling them citizens, raise your hand. Okay, well, I'm okay with that.
What was the outcome?
Like 1 to
What
1 to
was
8.
the outcome?
Wait, I'm good with citizens, Arthur. I didn't vote, so.
That's okay. Well, still would only be 2.
Okay.
I was still trying to figure it out. So I didn't vote
I
either.
think citizen is okay.
Okay, well, I feel okay about that. I mean, you know, obviously I might have a different opinion, but it's not critical. All right, any other edits?
Just a tiny one in the very last paragraph. Would it read a little better if you said, and consider as such? Consider it as such for planning and other purposes. I mean, it's just a grammatic, not so much grammatical, but just the how it
Awkward.
rolls.
It's
don't know.
awkward. I agree. Yeah.
I could even see, which might make it even more awkward, but
Well, if you take as such out, you can just have consider it for planning.
oh, you're just talking about the as such. I was thinking.
But well, because you're referring back, you know, it
Mhm.
is the contiguous. I can't see now. I can't. There's something covering up the word right now.
Let's see.
You know, the contiguous community is defined above and shown in the text. Consider it as such for planning and other purposes. I don't know. Otherwise, you have to repeat what it is.
I mean, could it just say refer to Glen Ellen as a single contiguous community as defined above and shown on the attached map for planning and other purposes?
Yes, I think that would work.
I think it still works.
That's even better.
Yeah, that's good. Less is better.
Yeah. Brevity is the soul of wit.
That's great.
Any other changes?
Maybe eliminate the apostrophe. I mean the comma.
Yeah.
There. All right. Have we beat this horse?
I think we have.
I move to have it be approved as written.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor of approving this document, raise your hand.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Nope. Okay. Unanimously passed.
Well, congratulations, Arthur.
Cool. I think it's a good step. I think, you know, it's kind of occurred to me like this process that we've been going through for several years now is kind of like, you know, kind of like adolescence. And we're defining ourselves. We're stating where, you know, where we begin, where we end, you know, what our boundaries are. That's all. You know, we may be 150 years old, but we're only an adolescent community in many ways. Okay, so moving on to the local bike path. And this is just a receiving, so we're not making a resolution. This is something, as you probably know, I've worked on this for quite a few years. You know, I've pushed it along slowly over time. You know, I'm not sure, like, if we do end up passing I suppose it wouldn't be tonight, but it might be like supporting the idea of this bike path. You know, and recommending to the county that they put some resources into it. We could run into some a snag with the state right now because they're probably not going to want to do anything on SDC. But you know, if we at least sort of get it in the books, and even if the county can only work on, you know, the southern half, put up some signs or something, I think that'd be okay. But anyway, and Mark, thanks for all your input on the bike path. And I agree. Mark sent me an email suggesting that, maybe we should come up with a more comprehensive, plan for non-motorized transportation, which I totally support. I also don't want to get too, I'd like to do what we can now, and then we can always add on to what we've done. So maybe that's something down the road would be to put together a transportation plan for Glen Ellen, and with other bikeways, and but this seems like a pretty simple thing to put together, as long as we can get around the state at this point. But anyway, that's all I'll say. Just any comments or thoughts on this?
Well, when I first came to this committee, we were on the transportation or safety and whatever our ad hoc is, it had to do with traffic and things. And I took out that Sonoma Valley Trail project, that 277-page thing. I went through it pretty carefully. And I'm not going to go on and on about that, but I think this is a big deal. I think the Sonoma Valley Trail is, for me, a huge thing. I think it would add a ton to our community. And so, Arthur, the question I had was in one of the things you stated. You said that maybe one of the ways to get this through would be to present it as part of the, a segment of the Sonoma Valley Trail, which I think is a great idea. But then I looked at the map, and I could be wrong. You know it better than I do, but it looked like it runs parallel to the proposed Sonoma Valley Trail, not really part of, or not a segment of that trail. Is that a correct understanding or not?
Jed, yeah, thanks for bringing that up. And I confess I'm not fully up on the route of the proposed Sonoma Valley Trail. I mean, I know, they've put a bike lane in Arnold Drive, and the Sonoma Valley Trail, is that the one? Would that go through the regional park and then head south near Highway 12? Is that the
Yeah, it's the 13 miles from Santa Rosa to Sonoma.
Yeah.
A whole study on it, and they spent $3 million on the study. And
so you're right. This doesn't directly connect with that, and I, it would be great if this was part of some bigger plan. But I also think this will serve. I think this would serve our local community better than a trail on Highway 12. Like if you're a parent in the Madrone Apartments, you're not going to take the Sonoma Valley Trail, out to Highway 12, up to Arnold, and then probably have to get off the trail to go down Arnold to get to the market. Like this is a way to get directly to the market.
I agree. I like the whole thing. I was just trying to think of a way to get it approved and passed and funded. That's where it's coming from.
Yeah.
So anyway, okay.
Yeah.
So it's the answer to the question is no.
Yeah, basically the short answer is no. Sorry.
All right.
But I think we'd have some leverage if we're, if we pass this, we can start talking to people that might be able to figure out how to connect this in, because it would be a good idea to connect it in for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Well, the other idea is it could be an offshoot that swings in through Glen Ellen. It would make a lot of sense to do that. I just think there's money set aside for this Sonoma Valley Trail. I'm just thinking to access some of that as part of that whole thing might get somebody's attention in terms of, I don't know.
That's a good idea. Yeah.
Yeah, that's just a thought. I'll be quiet.
I mean, an easy way to connect the Sonoma Valley Trail to this trail would be to just go through the regional park. That trail is going to go right by the park, right? So you come down the bike trail in the park, you connect right in, and and then there might be some money there to, especially since there's disadvantaged groups down in the apartment area. They certainly would serve those folks. So there might be additional money available through that too.
Okay, just a thought I had.
Yeah, no, that's good. Any other comments or thoughts? Or yeah, Kate?
Yeah, Arthur, help me a little bit understand how you're seeing this at the moment. So a couple things, the other way, Madrone has a bike route, which of course doesn't connect to anything, connects to Highway 12 and Arnold. And of course, the Arnold portion is not complete yet, but that would be another cutover to Highway 12 from here. So this route, give or take, is the route that we would take now from our house, right? And so it's a very functional route. It's not too busy. It's very doable. So in a way, it already exists, but of course, it's not formalized. It's not paved. It's not, all the other things. So, and of course, the SDC planning is ongoing, and bike routes have been planned as part of that. So I guess I am fully in support of this. I use it now in a sense, but I don't quite know what to do with it at this point. Can you help with that a little bit? Like, how are we thinking about this in at this juncture? With the plan that's going on.
Well, good question. So I think, just kind of getting it on the books, because you're right, it's usable right now. And that's one of the beauties of it. It exists. If you put a few signs on it, it would be more visible. People would use it even more. And so, and there might be some money coming out of the SDC process that could fund this. So I don't know if I answered your question, but yeah, I think it, it just seems so easy. But it'd just be great for it to be an official route as opposed to just something that people casually know about.
Okay, that's a good answer. Yeah,
that's kind of what I'm envisioning. Yeah, Mark.
Yeah, I mean, having now kind of jumped into doing community projects with the Glen Ellen Forum here as a liaison and kind of co-managing a couple of projects, I'm thinking that we can approach this from a couple of ways. One is just to lobby, like Jed was talking about, to lobby for this being a part of a larger plan so that it gets incorporated into the plan and then it gets funded, right? And then there's the other way is to pursue it as a community project, which is to then say, hey, we want to do this and have meetings with the county and say, okay, we want to put up signs, we want to paint these stripes. Like Kate was saying, that a lot of this exists and a lot of class 3 bike routes are just on existing streets, right? And class 2 is just basically, a lane along an existing road. Short of actually adding bike lanes, which means widening roads and putting in, striping and the proper signage. I mean, we can do a lot just to designate existing paths with, with signs and painting on the existing road. But you have to push for that. And if you do it as a community project, you can actually hopefully convince the county to make it a priority, to work with you, and even maybe do a kind of a public-private partnership where there's resources coming from both the community as well as the county. And I think they might be more likely to do it unless they're completely reliant on state funds, which is probably what they're doing for Highway 12, because they could just tap into, state and federal funds to do that. But anyway, the only other thing I wanted to mention was that I'm glad that our transportation subcommittee is weighing in on this, because I forgot to mention that when I communicated with you about this. I do think it's important to have their buy-in and that they're looking at this from the bigger picture angle. Otherwise, I completely support this initiative. Thank you.
When you say the transportation, do you mean the ad hoc or the
the ad hoc committee? Yeah. Which
I think at this point it's been dissolved, unfortunately.
Well, we're around.
We could
inactive.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, this could be a part of that if you were to reactivate. I don't know.
Yeah.
But my thought was, in a very brief summary, was in my notes to Arthur about this, was that I would like to see this bike path in the context of a larger plan for all of our roads. Whether it's class 1, 2, or 3 bike paths. I just think, I can't even ride my bicycle down Warm Springs Road without getting run over. I can't go a mile into town to get a quart of milk. You know what I mean? So it's, we'd love to see something done with that. But, that's down the road. I think the low hanging fruit are these existing pathways that just need to be demarcated. And I think that I completely support pushing for that.
So one thought is we're going to be talking about, the next round of ad hoc committees. So this could be an ad hoc committee, which would be a little different than a straight up transportation committee, or it could be, I'm not sure how we could frame it, but I know they're not supposed to last more than a year, unless they, so according to the Brown Act, but I'm not sure how different a committee has to be to not be considered an extension of an old committee.
I think you can reauthorize them.
Yeah, okay, good. Any other thoughts? Yeah, Kate?
Just a quick process question. I missed this, but is Supervisor Gorin not talking to us tonight? Is she unavailable? Because I noticed we skipped it on the agenda.
Right, yeah.
Because she's very knowledgeable about bike paths and what's happening. Yeah.
And she's behind this. I know she supports this. So yeah, she's in Sacramento at a big meeting, I think, for public officials.
Okay, thank you. I just missed that note. So I wanted to clarify for everyone else on the line too, just in case. Thanks.
So we'll take public comment in a moment. I'll just suggest maybe what we do is we table this, and then we can talk about reauthorizing the transportation committee if they want to take it on. But let's see if there's any public comment.
And Chair Dawson, we have at least one hand raised. Sharing my screen. All right, and this is for Tracy. Tracy, you should be able to unmute.
Welcome, Tracy.
Hi, I didn't intend to speak tonight, but this is a pretty important thing, and I just wanted to make a couple of comments. One is that making routes that are actually usable for citizens will involve a lot more than just this particular bike route. I have started riding my bike from my home in downtown Glen Ellen to Dunbar School. And to make that route, I have to turn on the way home. I have to turn left off of Henno Road onto Warm Springs Road. And so getting to Mark's point about a community effort, that is probably the most, I've almost died there a couple of times already. I mean, it's one of the most dangerous places to ride your bike. The other point I would like to make is that the Sonoma Valley Trail, I have done a little bit of research on that. And Jed is right, or I'm sorry, that was disrespectful. I mean, Councilmember Cooper is right that the Sonoma Valley Trail actually has money and has been upgraded just recently, and does connect through Sonoma Valley, the Sonoma Valley Regional Park. So that's already a viable option. And hooking into those kinds of funds and making bike routes accessible through Glen Ellen for not only commuters like myself, but also for kids that might be going to Dunbar School, and to people who might be visiting from outside the area and want to take a leisurely bike ride. It should be a priority. So I would encourage you guys to further explore this, and also to coordinate with the county to make sure that reasonable routes are created. So thanks for listening.
Thanks, Tracy. So that's good. Yeah, we can, especially if we get a committee together, we can pursue that. It does sound like low-hanging fruit in a lot of ways. Any other members of the public?
Giving folks one more moment, and seeing no further hands.
So should we vote? If people agree that we should just table this for the moment and push it off to a ad hoc committee, if you agree with that, raise your hand.
Is this a motion, Arthur, or do we?
Well, this is just we're not making a motion to pass anything. We're just taking a straw vote to see if we want to table this for the moment and then push this effort to the formation of the ad hoc committees. I guess it would be, I'll put it a different way. How about, would someone make a motion to place this issue to a new ad hoc committee?
Sorry to
I thought-
interrupt through the
Form.
chair.
Yeah.
It's an informational item, so you don't need to take a vote, or there's nothing to vote on. Just an
Okay.
informational item.
All right, so I'm just gonna, so let's just assume, yeah,
Great.
Jed?
I thought this was part of our traffic and safety committee, ad hoc. Is Kate and Angie?
Well, there's no longer that committee, right, Kate?
Oh,
No, I don't know if we formally disbanded those, and that's the next agenda item, but I think
Okay.
we can agree loosely, excuse me, Chair Dawson, that, yeah, let's keep talking about this, but in the context of whatever ad hoc committee we set up. I think that
Okay.
makes total sense.
Yeah, all right,
okay.
Or we resuscitate, whatever we want to,
yeah,
use, yeah.
okay. Okay, so I think we can move on then to the next one, which is review MAC priority goals and ad hoc committees. So let's see. So we have our priority goals. I'm trying to remember if we have a document that shows, we must have a document that shows that. I'm not sure if I've reviewed it recently. But we have, I mean, I think we do have some ideas for ad hoc committees. Hannah, do you have a list of our priority goals? We did talk about that at one point, but it's been quite a while.
Yeah, I believe this agenda item is sort of reusing the language that was on the agenda when you first set up your ad hoc. So I don't think it's referring a specific document, but just giving you the
Okay.
opportunity to review your former ad hocs and form new ones if you so choose.
Well, I'm going to just suggest off the top that that we form either a let's see, what can we call it? Well, transportation ad hoc, or maybe a non-motorized ad hoc. So then that can include the bike path and other things. And then I also would like us to consider forming a housing ad hoc, since that's part of our purview. And Tracy and I met with Caitlin Cornwall from the collaborative and talked about the MAC being part of their going to their meetings and stuff, or working out something. Either Tracy's already attends some of those meetings. She's been representing Glen Ellen, but we were talking about a way to bring the MAC in a little more officially into those conversations. So I was thinking that if we formed a housing ad hoc, then that committee could decide how they want to proceed, and they could be in communication with Tracy and with Caitlin, and I just want to quickly check in with Tracy. I know this is a little bit out of order, but Hannah, is it okay if I just get Tracy's thoughts, because I want to make sure I'm representing what we decided. It's been a few weeks and I'm a little fuzzy on it.
Yeah, and through the chair, if you don't mind, I can just provide a little more context from your bylaws about the formation of ad hocs, if that's all right.
Yeah.
From when you originally formed those three ad hocs, the traffic and safety, now I'm quizzing myself, two more, communications and outreach, and emergency preparedness. So those are three ad hocs in January of 2021. And in your bylaws, it states that ad hoc should last just a year. So those would have expired. So that was referenced earlier. And as one of the council members brought up earlier, ad hocs can be extended. But I would suggest moving forward in accordance with your bylaws that ad hocs be formulated about specific projects that have specific timelines, because you can extend them if, say, that timeline or that deadline, once your year of your ad hoc has existed, is up, has a date that's been pushed out a little further. Something more concrete than an ad hoc, say, around outreach that kind of is constant. So I hope that makes a little more sense. Go ahead, Councilmember Bernardo Morgan.
Was there not also an SDC ad hoc committee formed?
Yeah, and that's still in existence, actually. Yeah.
So that was activated in September, so not one of the group that expired.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And around a specific thing, so more in accordance with what I would suggest for the future creation of your ad hocs.
And my thought for the outreach committee is that's been dissolved, but that seems like that comes under the purview of the chair and the vice chair. So I'm just gonna, and I think Vicky's in agreement with this, that we'll just consider that's part of our role as sort of an executive committee, if you want to call it. It's not really a committee, but just in our role as chair and vice chair, we will pursue outreach as needed. Does that sound right, Vicki?
Yes.
Cool.
And so after my interruption there, we can open up the public comment if you want to hear from Tracy as well.
Oh yeah. So Tracy, did that meet your understanding?
Sorry, one moment. All right, Tracy, you should now be able to unmute. And Tracy's hand was not raised, so it's possible she stepped away for a moment. Chair Dawson, should we come back to this in a little
let's
bit?
Come back to Tracy.
Okay.
So you've heard my ideas for the next round of ad hocs. What are other folks' thoughts on that? Matt?
Simply a question. Is the housing related to SDC, and is that to be redundant? Is it because it seems like it could possibly be a redundancy that would be unnecessary if it's only going to be related to SDC housing?
I suppose it could be. I guess what I was thinking was because the collaborative, the housing is their big issue, and housing is part of our purview, that it might make sense to have a dedicated ad hoc to just housing that could then participate on the collaborative. I was looking at their website, and they have the city of Sonoma is a member of the SVC. So, it seems like we, as another municipal entity, we could be part of that as well. And that's something they're thinking about. Does that answer your question?
Vaguely.
I mean, I guess I see SDC as it has a lot of issues going on. Housing's part of it, but it's got a lot of other stuff too. Just for example, we might pass some kind of a resolution requesting that the county, I don't know, do more to promote ADUs in Glen Ellen, or, I'm just coming off the top of my head, but we might think of other things besides SDC to look at as a housing ad hoc.
So what I would say is, I think it's a great idea to be a part of the Sonoma Collaborative Group. I don't think it doesn't require necessarily a housing ad hoc on our part. There's nothing specific that we would be focused on as an ad hoc. And so it would be merely a matter of participating. You're going to wind up reauthorizing this ad hoc for as long as Sonoma Collaborative exists. So you may want to find another avenue by which we could have representation without having to form an ad hoc committee to have that formalized representation.
Yeah, that's a good point. We could, depending how much Tracy wants to remain involved, we could sort of share the representation with Tracy or somebody else, or have a designated person from the MAC who goes to those meetings, and that could change over time. So, without being a full ad hoc, they're just a representative. That seems like a good idea. I agree. Yeah, Mark, and then Susan.
Susan's up first.
Okay, yeah, Susan.
Muted.
Muted.
Muted, Susan.
You're still muted, Susan. She can't hear us.
Shoot. Everybody put your hand over your mouth. That did it. There we go. Hopefully.
I'm having trouble. So
text Arthur.
Working. I'm
Maybe you
going
could
to write it into the chat.
Okay. Okay, Mark, and then we'll go back to see if Tracy's available after this.
Oh, yeah, thanks. I just wanted to say, in response to what Matt was talking about, I fully support this new ad hoc that would form around housing, look at the larger area, look at the full MAC area. I think that even if we end up having it be a commentary on specifically on SDC and how it's developed, I think it would be really important to have the bigger picture of what the different housing types are and what's available here, what the real needs are. And that would include all of Glen Ellen and Kenwood. So, keeping in mind our full jurisdiction, if you will. So I really support us looking at that bigger picture. And I think that we were only given housing as a part of our purview is because of SDC and through Supervisor Gorin's blessing more recently. Isn't that correct?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Okay. So I think it may be limited. So we may want to check in with her as to just how far afield, how long our rope or our leash is, when it comes to exploring this topic and weighing in on that, because it's really more of a advisory commission role.
I thought in the bylaws it has, I thought under health and human safety, housing is under that.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go.
I think we should double check, but I think that's right.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
All right. Tracy, are you available to chime in on how we might coordinate or represent ourselves with the SVC?
All right. And I see Tracy's hand raised. All right, Tracy, you should now be able to unmute.
Hi. So yeah, I've been on the Sonoma Valley Collaboratives board back starting when it was Sustainable Sonoma. And it's been a thing where it's been a little bit difficult to, I'm a regional representative, right? So for the region of Glen Ellen, but the collaborative's reach is a valley-wide. And so when I speak for Glen Ellen, I'm trying to pull from, all the folks that I talk to and from meetings that we've had with the Glen Ellen Forum. So the thing that I see, the way that I can help this MAC is by bringing back information from the collaborative about what they're doing valley-wide, because it truly is valley-wide, right? They are looking at the housing element in the city of Sonoma. They are looking at housing in Boys Hot Springs. My focus has been primarily on what that means for SDC and making sure that what happens on SDC in terms of housing doesn't endanger the North Valley in terms of, fire and traffic patterns and all of those different kinds of things. So I'm happy to continue in that vein. And I guess the thing that I would ask from you guys would be to, I guess maybe, I don't know whether you have to say it's okay for me to do that, but I also could talk about what happens in Kenwood, because what's going to happen in Kenwood is going to affect the rest of the valley, right? If there are housing developments there. So yeah, I mean, I'm happy to help with your direction.
Thanks, Tracy. Hannah, would it be possible to give Tracy a regular spot on the update part of the agenda?
Yep, as long as we agendize that, that would be a part of the agenda. Yeah.
Cool. Tracy, are you willing to do that? Just be a, and it wouldn't mean you have to necessarily come every month, but maybe if check in at least every 2 or 3 months. So just keep us apprised of what's going on.
Yeah, I'd be happy to do that. I mean, that's my role. So I can do that for as long as you need me to.
Great. And one more question. Would you like some help from the MAC? Would you like to work with somebody from the MAC? Like, should we ask for a volunteer from the MAC?
Yeah, I mean, if I can't go to a meeting, or, you know, there needs to be someone else there to see what the Sonoma Valley Collaborative is. What they do is they come up with statements, and, you know, the last time that we talked, there was discussion about how blanket those statements are. And so to have another set of eyes on that would be ideal, because mine may not be the clearest at times, or I may just physically not be able to go.
Okay, so it'd be good to have a team, at least 2 people who can sort of trade off. So can we just ask for a volunteer to be that person? Is there any reason we couldn't do that?
Sorry, through the chair, just want to give folks one more chance to raise their hand and then close public comment while we're up here, and not seeing any further hands.
So, so is there anybody who would be willing to be that, you know, that partner with Tracy for the SVC? And maybe whoever does that, we won't necessarily expect you to be on an ad hoc. That would be your role. Yeah, Vicky.
Yeah, I'd be willing to do that.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, Tracy, you got a partner.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, Kate.
So just to be sure, you know, we're all cognizant of Brown Act stuff. So that's great that Vicky and Tracy would work together. So there's the informal group in Glen Ellen that's been looking at affordable housing and trusts and things. So I'm assuming that if 3 of us are still listening in when we can on those, we're still okay?
Yeah, I think as long as it's not more than 3. Yeah.
Right, but then there'd be Vicky, but she wouldn't be listening in there. She'd be doing something else. So they're not connected closely enough to be a problem, I don't think. But I'm just clarifying with you all.
Don't think so. It's probably good just to keep an eye on ourselves and make sure we're. But I don't have the impression there being a conflict there, but you know, you never know for sure. Until you actually are in the situation.
Yeah, I don't think so. But it's another reason I think that might be a graceful solution, the one we just identified, so that people can do their things, right? So that would make sense to me.
Yeah. I mean, I suppose if we wanted to, we could do that with other things too. If there's a single person that wanted to pursue something, they wouldn't have to form an ad hoc. They would just be the person that's in charge of developing a transportation plan or whatever it was. Is that, Hannah, is that kind of within accepted behavior for MAC members for somebody to take? I mean, I did the declaration on my own.
I apologize. Could you repeat the question?
Yeah, my question was if instead of forming ad hocs, or at least instead of forming a whole bunch of ad hocs, if there's a single person that wanted to take something on, like let's say that transportation plan for the community, can they just do that and they don't form an ad hoc? They just research it and then bring what they come up with back to the MAC. And
yeah, absolutely. They would reach out to you as chair to ask for things to be put on the agenda, and we could review them for the agenda.
So I guess that brings up the question to me is the and there certainly are advantages to working as an ad hoc, but at what point do those advantages outweigh the advantages of just 1 or 2 people doing something you know, that aren't part of an official ad hoc? Yeah, Matt.
Well, remember that ad hocs are largely related to a very specific focus, right? You know, organizing outreach, doing an emergency preparedness study and then providing that update to the committee. So it's an authorized formal committee. What you're talking about is something less formal. And as a result, then you would have to, you would prepare an agenda on a regular basis if you wanted that update. And, so, and it would not be focused on a specific thing. It would, you're talking about more general viewpoints going out to the committee or the community and having discussions. So, I mean, you're talking about two different things. And so I think when you ask that question, you probably want to be more specific in what it is that you're asking, right? If you're saying to yourself, well, we're going to study bikeways and and trails through Glen Ellen, then you would form an ad hoc committee to study that and inquire from the county and have presentations made to this body, right? But if you're saying, well, as a community, we're kind of interested in it, then you don't have to go through the effort of having an ad hoc and having meetings and be concerned about the Brown Act. So that would be my input about the question that you're asking.
So it's partly how serious we are about a certain
and how specific your focus is, right? Yeah. I mean, when we first started ad hoc committees, we were very focused on very specific things. The things that we're talking about now seem more generalized, that they could be covered in regular updates as Vicky can talk to Sonoma Valley Collaborative and just have a regular conversation with us about it. Here's an update as to what's going on, and it doesn't require, it's not going to require an ad hoc to do that.
Okay.
Because it's basically interacting with another group, another agency, another community body, right?
Right.
If we wanted to have an update from the Boys MAC, we wouldn't have to have an ad hoc committee do that,
Okay. Yeah, thanks. So what ad hocs do we feel like we need right now? What are people's thoughts? Yeah, Kate?
Well, I mean, we just talked about it earlier, something that includes bike paths. So would that be a transportation ad hoc? And is there interest in that from folks? I don't know if I would limit it to non-vehicular transport necessarily. I don't know that we need to. But anyway, I throw that out there for the group. I'm already on the only ad hoc that's still there, so I will not volunteer. But I throw that out there for discussion.
I mean, it makes sense to me as long as it's, as long as it's different enough from the last ad hoc that had a similar name.
Well, I think we were safety and
right.
transport, and we had more of a focus on safety. So anyway, yeah.
Yeah, so just call it transportation, and that would be, I mean, all of these things to some degree have overlap. You can't have a trail and bike path discussion without taking into account how you cross a public roadway. So there would be some overlap. You may have to have the county come in and address this as to what they have. They may even have plans that our group is unaware of. So forming an ad hoc that's transportation related could cover all of those things.
Was it Hannah that was saying that if it's a specific project, it doesn't necessarily have to end after a year? If the project hasn't been completed, is that right, Hannah?
Those are conditions under which an ad hoc can be extended if the deadline for the completion of the project is pushed further out than a year.
So if we did ad hocs for specific projects, rather than a kind of a global transportation, if we said whatever, the Glen Ellen Bikeway or something that's more limited, then if it hasn't been accomplished after a year, then we we can extend it. Is that, I think that's what I'm understanding. So I guess my bigger question is, do we want to have ad hocs that have us like basically single project ad hocs that are, have a more or less a single focus that they're trying to achieve, as opposed to but even if it was just to create a transportation map, that could be a single project. Yeah, Mark.
Yeah, this is a little awkward for me because I have a couple of ideas for ad hocs, but neither of which I could participate in because I feel like I'm buried right now in finishing up what we started with our emergency ad hoc. Because as you know, we are in the throes of putting on a community wildfire protection plan stakeholder meeting coming up next Monday on the 25th. So I got my announcement in and my excuse. Yeah, so please attend, sign up through the Glen Ellen Forum. That's Monday evening, coming up quick. And this is a chance to weigh in on the wildfire risks and what we need to protect. So, but the ideas that I thought that are coming out of this conversation are housing needs. Okay, so if we could have an ad hoc committee that identified existing housing stock and what housing needs are based upon, statistical, needs for the different classes of housing. That would be, I think, would be really helpful. And it would also give us a little more clout when we go to speak on these issues, if we knew what the actual housing stock is and what the needs are. And then the other has to do with this transportation. I mean, it's still kind of a safety thing, because if you have bike lanes and if you have, speed limits or, whatever signage to help protect pedestrians and bicyclists as well as motorists. But I think that having that map of needs, to whether it be for traffic calming or for signage and designation of bike paths, that could be a study, and it could be as simple as having the county come out and do a presentation on what they have planned, and then we could then learn what is actually needed. So anyway, I think those are two possibilities for an ad hoc committee that could be with the specific objective being, a plan or a document that shows what exists and what the needs are. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. And I'm going to read, Susan was having a hard time using her mic, so she sent me a direct message text. So I'm just going to read it. Susan says, I would like to add parking as an important issue in Kenwood Village, in particular the in-house wineries having special events, especially as we are going into the summer season. This could be part of the transportation subcommittee. And I agree. I think that would fit. So we could fold that in. Other thoughts on ad hocs? Mark, did you want to say something else?
No, I just forgot to lower my hand.
Yeah, Jed?
Which ad hocs, the emergency exists, which ones are still in existence?
Really just the SDC. And the other ones have been around for over a year. So
they just are gone.
Yeah. I mean, they sort of die a slow death as you reach a year. They don't immediately expire, but they're expected to expire. So I think we're at that point now. All four legs are up in the air on the original ad hocs.
Okay.
Arthur, can I?
Yeah.
I don't know. That sounded a little dire. Yeah, maybe they petered out. I mean, we can acknowledge that they petered out. But I do think, though, that short of having a final report, and a discussion on whether or not to ask for an extension or to reform under a new project title is something that we should discuss. And right now, I'm not feeling a comfort level in dealing with this, the resolution or dissolution of these ad hocs without a little more thought put into it, and without having reported out on the, the final status of these ad hocs. And so I just don't think we're prepared to do that. But I don't want to just say, oh, we died. I think that, I think we can acknowledge if they petered out, but anyway, enough said. But I do think that we need to give this a little bit more of a structured time to reach a resolution on the status of these, the previously formed ad hocs.
Yeah, I apologize. I didn't mean that to be disrespectful the way I stated that. It's just that I understood that.
It's okay. I just think that you're probably not getting much of a response tonight because it's, we're not, maybe just not prepared for that. I don't know. And I think I would be happy to provide a report if that's what we want to do. But
would you be able to do that
tonight? And everybody's pooping out. It's getting late.
Yeah. Well, let's hear from Matt, and then we'll figure out what to do here.
I agree with Mark. I think that's a very good observation. That we're disbanding something that we formalized, and in order to do so, we should have some sort of final, a postmortem, if you will, to go along with the same theme. And at that point, then we can take up, okay, we've ended these ad hocs, we've had reports, and do we have consideration for other ad hocs that we want to take up?
I would support that. Should we do that next meeting? What do people think?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So all in favor, raise your hand. We'll move that to. So next meeting we will do this is kind of getting into well, future agenda, but that's fine. So let's report outs and then new ad hocs next month. Okay. Anybody have any?
Can I just say one thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I know Mark, you mentioned housing, and we talked about housing earlier. That scope that you described, Mark, makes me a little uncomfortable. It feels big. And so, but that's just me. But I feel like as we think about these things, let's sort of think about the scope and how practical and the timing for change and who, are we equipped to look at that kind of thing? And I know I'm saying the obvious on some of this, but I just wanted to put that out there. Let's really be hard on ourselves as we look at where's our role with some of these things appropriately. So thanks.
Thanks, Kate. Yeah, I think capacity is a key issue here. We don't want to. I'd rather take on something small and succeed than take on something big and fail. Because I think we can build on our successes, but if we fall short, it's kind of dispiriting. Not that we shouldn't reach, but that's just my personal thought. Well, let's see. We should probably take public comment, I think. Yeah, any public comments on ad hocs that people would like to see?
And seeing no hands, Chair Dawson.
Okay. So we have reports and announcement from council members and ad hocs. We're going to do a big report out on ad hocs next month. But anybody have anything that they feel should be mentioned now instead of in 4 weeks?
You want the CAC update?
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, thanks.
So last month we reviewed a project on Castle Road in Sonoma. Somebody wanted to build a tennis court in the riparian corridor. So we reviewed that project. We reviewed the Springs MAC letter regarding SDC. And the CAC ad hoc for the draft EIR comments were reviewed and approved.
Great. All right, thanks, Matt. Any other comments, things that should be mentioned before next month? Okay, how about items for future agenda? Yeah, Damon?
Just wanted, it's a combination comment and future agenda. I'm not planning to return to the MAC in my next term. When we're through in June, my 2 years will be up. And I would like my the folks from Kenwood and I have informed Susan and her staff of my decision, but I'll be here in May and June, but in July, when we start a new year, I'll no longer be a part of the MAC. And we need to take a look at, I'm just bringing that up only because to find an additional person from the Kenwood region would be nice. It may not be, I don't know, I have no one in mind at the moment. And Jed is an outstanding alternate, so maybe he just moves right into that and we look for an alternate. So, but that's a decision for the MAC.
All right, thanks, Damon. Yeah, we'll miss your presence, but thanks for all your service. And I'd be in favor of Jed moving up, but we can talk about that next month. You know, I do want to just say one little thing about, you know, I know it's probably for people who are from Kenwood, it's probably felt very Glen Ellen heavy on the MAC. And so I just want people to know I'm aware of that. And if there's things we can do that will feel like we're serving Kenwood a little more, please, you know, let me know. Because I do understand we have a geographic reach here it goes way beyond SDC. Thankfully. Yeah, other comments? Yeah, Mark?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that I put the link for the Zoom meeting for Monday for the community, the Glen Ellen Community Wildfire Protection Plan meeting. This is the stakeholder meeting. So it's from, it doesn't have the time on there. It says 5:30, but it actually starts at 5, darn it. Pardon me, it just had the wrong time, but that is the link there in the chat. So, and you can also go to the Glen Ellen Forum website to register. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Mark.
Through the chair, Councilmember Newhouser, can you send that in the chat to all attendees so that the public has the opportunity to see that as well?
Okay, I think it went to panelists.
If you do the drop down, it can say everyone.
Oh.
And then it'll go to the public as well.
Okay, I feel compelled to edit it, but I don't know if I can. I think once you send it, you can't edit it, right? Okay, I'll do that.
All right, any other thoughts on next month's agenda? Okay, let's open up to the public. Any members of the public have ideas for next month? Things you'd like to see addressed?
Giving folks 1 or 2 more moments and seeing no hands.
Okay, well, I think we're done. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All right, and do I have a second? All right, all in favor of adjourning the meeting, raise your hand. All right, thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
It is now 7:39. Not too bad, a little over 2 hours, but not too bad.
Good night, everyone.
It's not a 6-hour meeting. All right.
Thanks, everyone. Good night.
Good night, thanks.